Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Ellie here again, and today we're going to be rebuilding Ophelia Villa. The build itself comes in at about 215,000 simoleons, so very expensive today, and as usual it is base game only with no custom content. So please sit back, relax and enjoy the build. Now, to those in the know, this is typically where the Goth family live, and so this build is heavily inspired by that. The Goths have a rich lore across the Sims games, and in my opinion are one of the most important families. The inspiration for today was unsurprisingly Gothic architecture. This has been the first build where I've actually physically drawn a floor plan on paper to support with the building process, as I really didn't want to get it wrong. I was actually super scared to build this, but at the end of the day I think it turns out really, really well. For the exterior of the build, I did want to stick to the dark colour palette that was originally used on Ophelia Villa. So I went for the dark bricks, and I also went for windows with black pane. I accidentally do them in dark brown first, but I do correct them to black later. I also decided to go with the rounded windows instead of the square ones, as I thought that they fit the vibe better of the property. And here I am just popping in the chimneys for the several fireplaces that are around the property. I had a bit of a issue choosing which chimney to put in there, and eventually I end up sizing down to normal base game chimneys and sticking them on the top, and I thought it worked really well. For the platform trim, I ended up going with just a dark wood panelling, which I thought looked really nice in the end and contrasted very well with the brick of the house. I did go through a couple of others first, but I felt that the wooden one fit best in with the property. I also went for a herringbone floor tile for the decking itself, and I thought that looked really nice and kept in keeping with the dark colour palette of the goth house. It's now time for us to put in the flooring and base wallpaper so that it's easier for myself when I'm decorating earlier. I decided early on that I did want to go for panelling for the wallpaper in the house. I think it gives a very nice grandeur to a house to have the wood panelling with the wallpaper, so that's what I decided to do on the inside, and I kept with the black flooring like I did with the decking as well to keep on with that aesthetic. Here I'm just popping in the fencing for the decking as well as the columns to go in with the decking as well. With the house structure now finished, I started off as is usual now with the outside landscaping and decorating. This time around I used terrain paint for the front path and I pop in a nice flower bed at the front. This time, instead of the classic border that I go for, I instead use the small iron fencing as I thought that fit the vibe better. I also pop in some seating at the front, a couple of planters, and I also put a telescope on the rear platform as well, just as a little Easter egg to Bella's abduction in the previous games. When it came to furnishing this time around, I was unsure what order I wanted to do it in, as I like keeping you guys on your toes and, mixing it up a bit in terms of what I'm doing first. I was almost going to do it backwards again, but then I decided to just fully furnish the upstairs first and then furnish the downstairs. So what I started off with was what I'll call the Alexander Suite, and then there'll be the Cassandra Suite, and then the Bella Suite, just named after some residents of the house. And I'm sorry, Mortimer, you don't get a Mortimer Suite. So the Alexander Suite is a child's room, and it has an ensuite bathroom, where Alexander's aspiration in Sims 4 is that of a whiz kid, and he's got the trait of a bookworm. I decided to model it after someone who likes to study, who likes education. So we've got the reading posters, we've got the desk to study at, as well as the bookcase and the science kit for the children as well. I do have to move the room around in a bit because otherwise I can't get the ensuite bathroom put in properly, but overall I thought it was a very nice room and very good for a academically focused child. This room here is the Bella Suite, so it is the master bedroom of the property, and it does also have a fireplace in it, which I really liked. I decided to go for the red theme because Bella Goth's red dress, it was very much inspired by that, and as usual, I absolutely hate the base game wardrobes, so we're doing an overbed built-in wardrobe with built-in vanity as well. You don't need to have a wardrobe for the Sims to be able to change their clothes in The Sims 4. You can change outfits at the mirror, so I thought as long as I put a mirror in there, then everything would be fine. I also put a lamp on the vanity, as well as some clutter of some nail polish and women's perfume, and I like to put a nice little painting above the fireplace as well. As usual, I'll throw in a rug just to tie the room together, and then what I do is I get some sofas put in the corner so that you can relax in the bedroom as well as sleep. Overall, I thought the Bella Suite was absolutely lovely. It doesn't have its own bathroom, but it is right next to the main family bathroom, so I think that's close enough, and I really enjoyed making this bedroom. Now we have the Cassandra Suite. I went back and forth on the wallpaper on this one, but eventually I found something that did work out and what contrasted nice with that purple bed. This is a teen's bedroom, and that's why there's also a fireplace in there, because you've got the masters of the house with their fireplace, and the second in command, so to say, the firstborn, they also get a fancy fireplace in their bedroom. As Cassandra has the master musician aspiration, as well as skill points in violin and the trait of creative, this is a creative teen's bedroom. I put in an easel in that little alcove by the window there, as well as a violin as well. I also put in some clutter around the easel, which I thought looked really nice. Overall, though this is a basic bedroom, I was really happy with how it turned out. I even used some base game wardrobe, guys. You can't say I don't try for you. And there is a desk there. What I imagine is that the Sim would be writing their songs at that desk or doing little sketches at that desk. I always love putting a desk in where there's no computer, And also, where it is also a teen Sims bedroom, they can also do their homework there as well. Overall, I thought the Cassandra suite was very good, and I really enjoyed how it turned out, despite the absolute pain it cost me to find a rug that matched with that bed. It's not until I do the hallway later that I actually find the right rug, and then I swap it over with what I've got going on in the hallway. Finally, in terms of bedrooms, we have the guest suite. So this is just a spare room that anyone can use, or if you like to play as the Goths, you can invite someone to stay. Maybe have Don Lothario over, or one of the Catalina sisters, who's to say. For the colour scheme on this one, I wanted it very neutral, not too in your face, and so I ended up with a very nice cream and red theme going on. There's just a couple of bits of decoration in there where it's not a full bedroom, and overall I thought it looked very nice and was very appropriate as just a plain guest room for someone staying over. Moving on to the bathrooms, I was actually quite enamoured with how they turned into strange shaped bathrooms. It did make it more difficult to place things down, I will admit, but overall I really liked the challenge of trying to get things into smaller places while still making them functional. My favourite is probably the family bathroom, just because that was probably the easiest one to do, but my second favourite was this one I'm building now, where it had the wall between the shower and the sink there. For the ensuite of the Alexander suite, that was the most difficult because I'd accidentally placed the bed on the wall where I originally wanted to place the door. I'd just forgotten I wanted to place the door there, so I do have to go in and change things if I wanted to be able to fit a sink in there. So eventually I move the bed from that wall, and then I get a sink in where the door is currently, and it fits in there very nice. The fact that there's 3 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms in this build impressed me quite a bit, because usually I don't do that many rooms and I don't do that many bathrooms. I think overall the ratio to bathroom measure was on point. Lastly, and perhaps least favouritely of my rooms to do upstairs, is the hallway. There's a reason I always leave it for last. I thought this worked out pretty well though. I managed to find a rug for the Cassandra suite that I really liked. But all jokes aside, I enjoyed using some of the grander statues and plinths that I don't usually have an opportunity to use in my other builds. I put the little ballerina statue in that I really liked, and I put a nice plinth on there that I put some flowers on later. And I thought overall the hallway did actually look pretty nice, and despite my complaining, I think I did a good enough job. With the upstairs complete, it was time to move to furnishing the downstairs, and you'll never guess where we start first, fellas. We start in the kitchen, obviously. So I put the appliances in first, as I made it quite difficult for myself where there was no two full walls to use, and I usually like having a little L shape to make a kitchen. So I knew right away I'd need an island counter to be able to fit a sink in, as well as some counters that were actually usable for making the meals in The Sims. So I end up putting the fridge against that wall, and I put the sink in the island counter as usual. I tried to put a hutch in, but I didn't think it looked that nice, so we do just have that one wall of counters and cabinets, that is it. I put 5 chairs around the island kitchen this time around. It looks a bit squished, but I think it works overall. And I also put in some hanging pots and pans, which I really like in these types of kitchens, as well as some other neutral decorations. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted on the walls, but eventually I did get something up there. I go with the drinks cabinet, and overall the kitchen did end up quite nice despite the challenges I had with it. This room we're doing here is the living room. I decided to make it red themed as I correlate the colour red with the goths quite often, and as that would be the main room for them to hang out in, that's the deciding colour that I went for. The living room in this instance is purely meant to be a place to relax, read, and look at the fireplace, admire some art. The other room that I move on to for the actual entertainment, the family room, that's called the great room. So here what I'm doing is I'm just putting the sofas down, I get a nice coffee table in there as well as a rug and just some nice art. I also decided to place a chair down looking out of that big window there, as I thought that was quite ominous but also quite funny. I can just imagine Mortimer in his elderly years shaking a stick at the youths that are walking past on that path like, "Get off of my lawn!" But yeah, I just thought that was fun to do. The room we're decorating here is called the Great Room, and I had to look up what one of those was called. All I knew was that Gothic houses sometimes had them, so I made a space for one. And according to theplancollection.com, a great room is a versatile and multifunctional space in a home that typically combines the functions of a living room, a family room, and sometimes even a formal dining area. It's essentially the heart of a house, designed to bring families and guests together, fostering a sense of togetherness and relaxation. So this is where I decided to put the TV, the sofas, a chessboard. I almost wanted to put a bar in there, but it just turned out too cramped in the end. We do also have that living room that has the bookcases in there, so I didn't want to put too much stuff in here. And I like that the living room and the great room are just so close together so that you can change quite easily between the two of them and maybe even pick up some drinks from the kitchen on your way through. Overall, I was really happy with how this turned out, and it was a fun thing to put in a build, which I don't usually do. For the final main room, we have the dining room. I know there's seats for 8 people there, but there's only 4 people in the house, but I like having a long table. I think they're quite grand, and I think they're quite fancy, to be perfectly honest. I decided to go for a blue theme. I don't know why, but I just love blue dining rooms. I didn't grow up in a blue dining room. I just really like the colour, I guess. I put in some more plinths with some flowers and a couple of hutches. I usually don't branch out that much when it comes to furnishing my dining rooms, and that's definitely something I want to look into in the future if I ever do another separate dining room. Overall, I thought it was pretty bog standard for me, and I liked how it turned out because it's something I usually do. And at last we have the downstairs hall. I knew the instant that I was going to do the Goth family home that I was going to put a suit of armour in here, so I'm happy that he had his own little alcove with a little spotlight above him. I think he deserved that. He's a very fancy suit of armour and he deserves the best. I found it difficult to fit rugs in this area. I went with the original one that was also upstairs and tried to fit two of the smaller ones together. I put them as close together as I could without making it look naff. I also put in a classic coat hook, a shoe rack, and a couple of pieces of art along the hallway. Overall, there's not much in there. You can tell that they're my least favourite things to do, but overall I thought it was pretty good, or good enough for me. And there's the final build. It does again come in at just over 215,000 simoleons. I'm sorry about the price. It's now live on the gallery and it is called Beatrice Villa. I chose Beatrice because Beatrice is also another Shakespeare character. She's from Much Ado About Nothing. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I really appreciate the time you take to watch these videos. If you want to like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, but if not, I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy the free cam view.